Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutchaw with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Ali Horriyat. He is the founder of Compassiviste, and he has an amazing background. It's unbelievable the things that he's done, and he made a switch in life. He's also the author of at least 13 books. Can you say hi, Ali?
Hello to you and everybody, and thank you for having this discussion together.
I
Glad to
love
be
this,
here.
what you're doing, because you're focusing on, rather than you went through the life of trying to make lots of money, but you also realize we need to have compassion, right? Having that's kind of
Mhm.
how this Compassiviste was
Definitely.
was created. And can you tell us what prompted you? What triggered this in you?
Um, well, it started out with essentially, like you said, being in the finance world and earning a lot of money. In the beginning, the earnings and the growth was bringing happiness. So when people say money doesn't bring happiness,
Right.
but it was a quick diminishing returns issue. So, you know, you take a kid to a ice cream store and you give them a scoop of ice cream and they're loving it, and you tell them, "Do you want another one?" And generally they say yes, and they can't believe that you're offering that second scoop, and so they love it. And you say, "Do you want a third one?" And they're like, "What's wrong with mom?" And but they'll still say yes because they're too young to know any better. And so they have the third one, and their stomach starts hurting, and say, "Do you want a fourth one?" And then they're like, "Oh, can I have it?" They'll start negotiating with you. They'll be like, "Can I have it tomorrow?" So that they can maintain some kind of receipt of it. Or they will say, "Okay," if they're that much younger. Eventually, they'll puke from having too much ice cream. So I went through the same thing with money. I started making a few $1,000s, and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool. I can, buy a new winter jacket." Then I started making a lot more, and I was like, "Oh, I can buy nice cars." Then I started making a lot more. I can travel the world and do all these amazing things. Then I started making an exponential number. And then I said, "There's nothing more I can do. Got the nicest house, got the nicest car, everything that I could buy, essentially. There's no more happiness coming." So it became that fourth ice cream where the money was regurgitated, basically. There's no point to it, no point to the excess. That's when I started thinking about what can I do with the excess? And I got into philanthropy earlier because, if you live in North America, whether in the US or Canada, or even in parts of Europe and the UK, you understand that, your taxes have a lot to do with how philanthropic you are, essentially, whether you care to be or not. You may not even care to be, because my accountant would, message me quarterly, like every 3, 4 months, and be like, "Hey, Ali, remember I told you to donate this much? You still haven't." So Ali would have to find a place to give money to, right? And there were organizations I was giving money to that I didn't even know. It was just, sure, why not? So that happened. And then I got to a point, a couple of catalyst situations happened that really got me thinking, okay, this is not good. This is not happening. I'm not where I want to be. I'm not becoming happy. It's not giving me anything that I want. So took a break from all of it, walked away, and realized I want to do Compassiviste because this is what brings change. It's a
Yeah.
mindset change. It's leadership change, not in the sense of a cult or a guru, but or any religious organization. It's not a new Scientology, but it is a group of people that are supported by being given the tools we all need to advance. So you look at a lot of, I give the news as an example. You open your news app, you open whatever it may be, it could be CNN, whatever, one of those big ones, right? And you see all this news. Mostly it's horrific. But even in the horrific parts of it, right? You're like, "Oh my God, this many kids died here. Oh my God, there was an earthquake. And oh my God, disaster," right? But the thing that depresses people more, I think, is the fact that you finish that, you close the app, and you go on and like, "I can't do anything. I'm one person. Like, what can I do?" But there's nothing there to support you to do anything. And in that capacity, what ends up happening is there's no outlet, there's no leadership, there's no bridge. Had the reporter said, "I was in Yemen, I saw these kids, they passed away, this was the situation, I met a lovely person, and she's trying to support them, and she's trying to, build a community for them and whatnot." here's a link to that person, or here's that person's phone number, or here's a way to get in touch with that person so you could do something about it. I'm sure a lot of people would be involved. I'm sure a lot of people would
Yes,
say,
I would definitely. Yeah, I agree
you
with
see
that.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Some we don't have that today. A lot of what we have is awareness raising without the continuity. So you'll see a lot of posts on social media. You put any of the hashtags of anything you care about, millions of pages popping up for you. But then where do I go? What do I do? How do I get involved? How do I make that change within myself and communally so that that power is, added incrementally to the other people in that group to grow? So I thought it starts with compassion, because that's what's lacking in the world today, to be honest. A lot of our conflicts, a lot of our problems, a lot of our inequalities, from domestic violence, internally in your house, all the way to nations at war with each other, comes down to a lack of compassion leading the discussion. So, if you and I are sitting for dinner together, and I want pizza and you want a burger, and we can't agree, if we have enough compassion, we may at the end of it say, let's make both, right? I mean, that's the worst case scenario that can happen, or we'll give in to one or the other and we'll enjoy our meal together. But for one of us to get up and stab the other, what is required in that position? A lack of compassion. That's the elementary thing that has to be reduced for that to happen. So I realized the essence of making change is compassion. And compassion is something that you feel. It's emotion, right? You feel compassion. You try to understand another person's problems and stuff. But at the point of action, that's where compassion changes. That's where you see results from compassion. That's where you try to be in a position where you can get somewhere with your compassion. So Mother Teresa saw, problems in Calcutta, in India. She said, what can I do about it? I feel for it. She started an organization. She did something. Now, you want to talk poorly about her, you want to talk greatly about it, doesn't matter to me. The point is, she thought about it, she had compassion, she went and did something for it.
Yes.
That's what makes changes, right? That's where the changes come from. So I put compassion and activism together, and it made the word Compassiviste. And as I've said many times, the E at the end is not what is this, or for some artistic value. It has a real value to me, and I hope it does to everybody who starts using that word. It's to remind us that this compassion, this nurture, this feeling of togetherness, this bond that we have is based in the feminine power of humanity. So as Mother Nature, we call it, or as that force of the feminine instinct within each of us, whether man or woman, or however you want to identify yourself, it is the feminine power that guides. So, and to give you a quick example, the easiest meal for any human in the world is a newborn baby. It's defenseless. You'll never get injured preying on a newborn.
Right.
But in the entire universe, generally speaking, as a common rule, nobody's eating their children as they're born. They're raising them, they're nurturing them, they're caring for them, they're compassionate towards their needs. They may not even eat themselves and feed them first and stay hungry. All of these things happen in various species, not just humans. And you think to yourself, what is that guiding principle that makes me not take the easiest meal? And you think, well, it has to be the motherly nature. So that's why the E is there at the end.
Oh, I like this is really cool. I'm learning a lot, and it visualizing. I know as you're talking, I'm a visual person too. So
Great.
I think that helps for me how I've learned in life. I always like pictures, and I like physical book. Right. That's just kind of how I was raised. But I like how you're focusing on that, on Mother Nature, and my understanding is you're also doing a lot of books. You're helping that way. You're sharing the message that way.
Yes.
Like I shouldn't say entertainment. Was that a way?
Well, it is actually. I'll give you an example. Well, first you said you're a visual person, so I'll make this visual.
Yeah, thank you.
We call it the Compassiviste octopus.
Okay.
So now imagine an octopus. So I'll give you a little intro. An octopus has little brains in its tentacles and has one big brain in its, big bulbous head. And so that big brain, it's like the master brain. And then, the brains down there, they kind of like are coherent with this big brain in unison to make the event happen, to manifest. So when it's like, I'm hungry, okay, we need food. All the 8 tentacle brains decide, let's go get food. Some start walking, some start searching for food. Like each tentacle is doing its own thing, but in unified collective, essentially, right? To get the food. The goal is get the food. So Compassiviste Octopus is basically, we have these, which is to make the world a better place. Each tentacle is a program. So we have the publishing house as a program. We have our arts program. We have our carbon labeling program. We have our TV show program. We have multiple programs. And what we do there, like you said, we have books. Now, with each one, we want to raise awareness and we want to have environment at its core because everybody here at Compassiviste believes even if we were to solve all of the hunger issues of the world, if we are doomed to wildfires and going extinct, what was the point of doing that? So it is important to end poverty, but it's important to end poverty in a way that you can provide a world that people are going to live in, not to reduce from it. So here I am trying to help people in poverty. Meanwhile, the food sources are going away because, a lot of the farms and agricultural resources that we have are in wildfires in California. So, it's not smart. So we put everything, environment at the core of everything. So give you an example of the publishing house. We challenge print publishing. And the reason we challenge print publishing is not just because of the paper issue. The paper issue is at the forefront. But imagine when you go and you buy a book from a bookstore, do you ask them where the book was bound? You don't generally. Nobody generally. And the thing is, the books are generally, for the most part, found in Southeastern Asian countries with, lax laws, labor laws, and a lot of trafficking and child labor involved. So you're reading a very beautiful novel, you're buying your children books, and they're enjoying those. Little do you know that there's a 9-year-old somewhere with, their fingerprints almost losing their skin on their fingers because they're binding these books with their fingers like that. And so we bring that conversation up. We don't just say it's bad for the environment. And we try to, hit back at the media that the big publishing houses push out. So they say, oh, but, buying tablets or e-readers are also bad for the environment. Well, we're not saying buy e-readers or tablets.
I have both. I have both.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, you use your laptop, you use your phone for a million things that you do every day. Read on those. You don't need to have another technical device for that. Do you buy a new laptop for your Zoom calls only versus your other work? No, you use the same laptop. So you see what I mean? So we bring all of these things to the core. And then we also bring to the core that when you publish a book with a publishing house, traditional publishing house generally, you lose the rights to your book. So you don't own anything that you create as an artist. And then when they come back to you, it's normally what they want you to write. It's never at the comfort of what you want to write. So we at the publishing house now allow our authors to hold all of the rights of their books. We just distribute their books. And and as a collective, we split it up in the middle. So we're not, if you're lucky enough to get into the big 5, you're looking at what, 10, 15% as an author.
Be a lot more than that. I used to, when I got into college, I was working for a traditional publisher who was called Western Publishing, which did all the little golden books. And they used to produce it in the US, but they got that's what's going on, right? And so that was bought out by Penguin. So I and I help I help indie publishers, right? That's kind of what, I let them, because of my background in that world, and it's just changing constantly. I think every industry is changing, and we have to be aware of that and to do the right thing for the planet.
Exactly.
Right? And that's why I know there's not many print on demand is coming a little bit better. It's I should say coming, but it's getting, the quality hasn't always been the best from my perspective.
No, that's right.
And but they've gotten a lot better. And so I think it's better for the environment too, if you're going to do something physical, to do a one-off rather than print 10,000, right?
Because it's cost effective.
Right. That's the only
Not because you have the readers. Yeah, not
right.
because you have the
Then you
readers,
have
but it's
to
cost
store
effective.
it. Then you have to go ship it and store it
Yes.
somewhere.
Yes.
And that's the way life used to be. And
Right.
and I'm totally with you on that. And it's just been but like I said, every industry is affected. And then during COVID, that was freaky, as you heard. I mean, everybody was, nobody could get paper, but people, what I think was hurting, I'm sorry, I'm starting the paper industry, is we're having stuff delivered to our house all the time with corrugated carton, and those paper mills switched from book paper to corrugated cartons. And there's only one paper mill in the United States, sorry, that can make book paper. And so it's just bizarre. That's what I've seen. And that's why we had such a hard time. This happened before COVID. We just didn't know about it until we needed.
And yeah, and you need to raise that awareness, right? I mean, you're talking about it now, but everybody needs to know these things, and it takes an industry you're talking about. But that's the sad part. Everybody should know these things as a consumer.
And I didn't know about it until I was like, why are we going? Because I don't talk to the paper companies. I talk to the printers, right? And it was the printers that got, they're just having to allocate only so much per month it's just crazy. And people thought ebooks are going to go away, but they're fine. They're doing good. And I've noticed audiobooks have really taken off.
Yes.
And they're taking off. This what we're doing here, podcasting has taken off. And I'm like you, I don't want all this negative stuff. We need to, like you said, I love the idea how a reporter can put in how you can get more involved or do it's something. It's a great recommendation.
And it's not costly. Some people come up with these recommendations that cost, like, to integrate this system, you need to raise X amount of millions, tens of millions of dollars.
Yes.
Like, okay, maybe that's not going to happen, because where are you going to find the funding? Not everybody can, right? But then when you come up with an idea that's like just one extra line in your essay or whatever it is in your newsprint, one extra line, contact this institution. Let those places start, doing their work with all the people who get involved. You have a huge platform. I think you're responsible and accountable to what goes on in your platform. You can't just clickbait news. You need to be proactive there. I mean, this is a huge platform. The people who started these platforms decades and centuries ago sometimes, didn't start it with the idea of clickbait. They started with the idea of transporting news, telling people what's going on around the world, getting them involved, getting them, to live that democracy, the feeling of democracy where you're involved, where your opinion matters. Whereas today, it's like really dying away, right? It's really dying away.
It's confusing with all the platforms out there too, I think.
I know.
Yeah, I can just imagine. I just thank God I didn't have a mobile phone when I was young. But I mean, because there's pros and cons to all that too. And it's I don't know.
But I mean, in the long term, you got to make a decision, right? I mean, you look at the other industries that are very close to the book world. For example, music. In a blink of an eye, music went digital. I mean, I remember I was buying cassettes and vinyl, and then all of a sudden I'm buying CDs, and I was like, "Whoa, this is so huge!" And it's so huge because you just press a button and the song starts again. You have to rewind it and remember how long to rewind it to start the song. And just click and the song plays again. So it was amazing, and the quality changed so much, and the tech grew so much. And then all of a sudden, the iPod came, and Napster and those things came up. Yeah, those things. That's where it started. I mean, it didn't start with Spotify. It started with some poor guy who got shut down, and because he didn't have all the right ways of doing it, right? And so then the industry looked at this and like, hey, if we fix this, this could be the future of music. Nobody paid Napster for the idea. They shut them down essentially. Those Napsters, LimeWire, and a few other ones. What I don't remember, but I remember I was young then. They all got shut down. They were the pioneers, and now we have Spotify. But now music's digital. People in music are making more money now than they were when they
Awesome.
were selling vinyls, right?
Awesome.
So it's a good thing, and it's good for the environment, and it's good for you don't have to go to a store. There's not a place that has air conditioning and heating and lighting and taking all that energy, sucking it out. There
Right.
is no people working there, so they have to go there and come back. Whatever mechanism they're using, it's still
Right.
not good for the environment. So you're reducing all of this, right? And now you can enjoy the same music with a lot of information. You know, you go to Spotify, there's a lot of info about your artist, about the song, the
Yeah.
lyrics, all those things. So it's not lacking anything. It worked, right? Why are we not doing this with paper and in different departments? For example, let's get away from the book, that's the judicial system. You go to court because you got I don't know, a speeding ticket and you want to contest it. You're there. There are files of the police report and all those things. They're all physical. They have to give you one file to the court, one file goes to some archive that they have to keep it for X amount of years and blah, blah, blah. This is all generated
That's,
paper. Now imagine
yeah.
the big court cases of, murder or something, a big divorce or whatever. You're talking about, volumes of books, value of pages being kept in archives. Now, these archives are huge buildings that, again, need staffing and paper and energy consumption and all that. Can we not do all of this digitally? Yes, we can. We have all the tech. You can email me my police report. You can email me my divorce documents. I don't need to see them in a page,
That's,
right? So
yeah.
now you take that, you take the hospitals and the healthcare department, all the prescriptions and all the hospital documents and papers, put them all on a tablet and put them all on emails and stuff like that and on servers. You take the book industry and shift it to audio and digital. You do these, all of a sudden you're really making a lot of change. Now you can repurpose a lot of those places, those huge
Yes.
libraries that are not being used anymore, because
Right.
if you read the statistics, there hasn't been a year that library usage in Europe and in North America have increased from the year before. It's always been on a decline. So being
Yes.
that they're on a decline tells you something. Most people today have laptops or smartphones or something at home with them. They don't need to go to the library to send an email. The amount of people who need to do that is significantly reduced from the 1990s. So obviously less people are using the facilities. Can we not repurpose the libraries to other things? Can we not make them homeless housing? Can we not make them some other social event cause, right? These huge institutions.
Right. You can have
So
events
I think there's a way.
to be, I would just, when you're thinking about the library, I'm just thinking of having kids get together and read poetry or something. That's just kind of,
Yeah,
right. To me, they,
but repurpose it to that.
yeah,
Repurpose it to that,
repurpose it.
and make it an event space, a
Yeah.
cultural community center. So you have your library, your community library. Put events in there. Don't just you don't need the books there. You can take out those stacks, those shelves, have them digital, and turn to a digital system that they don't have to come all the way there just to pick up a book and go back. And then for returns and stuff, there's all these problems with the physical books and whatnot. With the digital, you won't have that. But then you can repurpose the space to, like you said, have children come there and get into the concept of writing a short story, writing poetry,
Yes. I love that.
creating
Yes.
art in any way. Express yourself. That's what Compassiviste is about. And we have a lot of artistic programs that touch on these things, which bring entertainment and education together, because I also strongly believe that art is the space that we express through. So,
Gotcha.
podcasting is an art. Writing a book is an art. Dancing is an art. They're all arts. Now we can purpose our art to two things. We can purpose it to the capitalist drive, which is all I'm thinking about is how do I take my art and make it the most profitable art. The second way we can purpose our art is how can I take my art and by the time I die, I have a legacy that the momentum that I brought to this world made the world a better place when I left it. So I was a value added soul in my lifetime. I want to be a value added soul in my lifetime because we remember Jesus. We remember Moses. These are 3,000, 2,000 years ago. We remember Gandhi. We remember Martin Luther King. We remember Mother Teresa, like I told you. So many people we remember, right? These were not billionaires. They were value added humans, though. Can you tell me who was the richest person in 1984?
No.
No. Can you tell me 1994? No.
Nope.
You see
Right.
what I mean?
There's so many.
Yeah, but the people who Even if I
Made a
ask people,
difference. Yeah, he made a
yeah,
difference.
you
But
got to make a difference to be
yeah,
a part of the momentum. And that's when you never die. That's when you're immortal. Because to me, Jesus is immortal. Why? Because not because he lives physically, he has his passport and he's still alive. No, but because his impact, his art, his expression never died. It still lives through so many people.
right. He had a definitely
That's the power. And yeah,
that's a lot
and,
of
and
power.
that's what Compassiviste is about, is to allow that momentum through the collective to make those changes that we can make that back.
I like this. I could just, oh my gosh, yeah. I've the like you mentioned the activism kind of stuff at one point. I've helped with like the American Cancer Society just because I've
Mhm.
had uh, um cancer a couple times and it's just environmental for me. But so we went and talked to our legislators.
You fought cancer twice.
Yeah,
Can we flip the roles here and I
yeah,
become the
okay.
interviewer? Tell us a little bit about the first time.
The first time I was 41 and it was discovered that I had a small tumor um in my right side because based on a mammogram. And I had a baseline first. And then and a couple of years later, my doctor recommended this because she had stage 3 breast cancer. It's like, okay, I trust her. She's one of those people I trust.
Mhm.
And then we discovered this. And then it turned out I have to do I forgot what the surgery's called. It was a little tiny lumpectomy is what it is. And they
Mhm.
tested it and it was aggressive. I'm like, okay, great. And then he was a researcher, so I trusted him. So I ended up having some radiation to my chest. And then um still was having some weird things going on. It was just kind of weird stuff. 3 years later, the breast cancer doctor decided to do an MRI of my brain. And we just check out my pituitary, which controls all your hormones.
Mhm.
And my hormones were a little off, especially like the prolactin and then the growth hormone. And then they found a big tumor in the back of my head I didn't know I had. And it was rare. But if I hadn't asked a lot of questions, so what that was called a vestibular schwannoma. I don't know if you've ever heard of that
Mhm.
before. And I didn't know I had it because it grew slow. My body accommodated to it. And they said that kind of tumor is related to having radiation exposure. And I'm a army brat, military brat. So grew up around that kind of stuff. And so they didn't know what to do about it. So I saw 6 specialists and ended up going to having what's called cyberknife. And that shrunk it some. But then my hormones were just still really crazy. And cancer came back and the breast cancer. And that was I didn't know there's a thing called a breast tail.
Mhm.
You ever heard of that? I didn't know there was such a
Yeah.
thing. I didn't, you just don't know that. You just think, oh my God, it's in my armpit. And I thought it was my lymph nodes, but it was fine. So they removed it. And that was aggressive. But I ended up doing chemo based on a lot of stuff. And what really killed it, Allie, the following year, my my oncologist recommended I get the tetanus booster shot.
Mhm.
And that is what killed the brain tumor, controlled all my hormones, and everything has been. So I'm going to get my booster shot again next year. But that's a repurposing and asking questions and being open
Mhm.
um, to doctors who will let you ask questions. That's
Yes.
how I saw it. Because they called me the zebra among horses because I did everything right. And like, how does this happen?
Mm.
But it's again an environmental thing that, you people, I'm one of those people. I listen to my body. I'm like, something ain't right. And I'm not going to take a
Mhm.
pill. I mean,
Mhm.
pain pill, just because I just kept
Yeah.
asking
But
questions.
that's your body trying to talk to you and you saying shut up. It's
Right.
not feelings, right? Yeah.
So I'm all good now.
It's
It's
actually rude. I tell
right.
people, if you take a pain pill, you're just being rude to the person
Yes.
trying to talk to you.
And I think that the medical industry is getting better, especially the cancer oncology
Mhm.
aspect,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
because they didn't know. I'm like, what the hell is causing this? I was like, I just knew, I pop in a pill because these weird things were going on with me. And we finally, I'm just, people have pros and cons and feelings about vaccines, but thank God my OBGYN was understood that this the Tdap booster shot is being used, repurposed for brain tumors. And that was
Mm,
my root cause of even the breast cancer. It was just really, I
wow.
laugh about it now. I mean, I had to make jokes about it, but
Yeah, you do, because that's what gets you through, to be honest. And the reason, I'm speaking about this with you is because I've had so many people around me go through these kind of things, and it's becoming so normal in a sense to, within a community of 20 friends for two or three to have cancer stories now. So it's
it's
kind of
just
like it's everywhere, right? And it's the food we eat, it's the environment. We're just not careful anymore. We're just like kind of like
right.
everything's gone off and we're not fixing it. And
And my father was a Vietnam veteran and he died of Agent Orange exposure. Just don't know. I don't know. I was born before he was exposed to that, but you just don't know. Right. And I did go and get certified in nutrition. I knew I had to heal the way I've
Mhm,
always been a
mhm,
vegetable eater. And everybody used to make fun of me because I prefer vegetables.
mhm.
But that's what my body was telling me to eat.
Great.
And I cut out dairy because it makes me I can eat dairy in France, but not
Mhm.
it's different. No,
Yes, yes,
I can go down,
yes,
that's a different path, but I just
yeah,
knew I had to heal and listen to my body. And a lot of people are doing the same thing and
yes.
I exercise because that helped with healing and helped.
Mhm.
People don't realize how important that is, and I can still do it, right? That's
And it's a transition, right? I mean, when you look at 40 years ago, the science and the amount of information we have at our disposal today, especially in the developed parts of the planet, it's amazing how much we can come to the table to a doctor with right now. Whereas, if you had cancer 80 years ago, you went to a doctor and the doctor says, you do this and this. You didn't even know what you had and what the doctor's offering. You just
right.
listened, right? Whereas today, the explanation is a conversation. Like I've been with
Yes.
people, to the doctor, and it's a conversation because I know a little bit. I know I'm not a doctor, but I know a little bit. I've done a little research. The person with the cancer has read 4 books before coming to this meeting. So people understand what they're talking about slightly. So I think it helps the doctors too, because the good doctors, like the doctors you had, are going to be like, okay, great, this person cares, they understand, they know. I can have this conversation with them. I can trust to tell them these things and make the right choices together, which is beautiful, right? And that is what builds resilience.
Yes.
You're coming to speak to me about resilience, and I have to, I have to sit there in shame right now because I haven't been through
Right.
situations that are life threatening that build resilience. All I've done is given all my money away and started all over again
Right.
from
Yeah.
scratch. So that's baby steps compared to what you've been through, and that's why you do what you do today, because you
Yes.
understand the impact of it. You understand the impact of
Right.
being given a second or a third chance at life. I have a friend, his name is Howard Brown, and he's in the East Coast. He's in Michigan now. This was a person at the forefront of the tech revolution, in the 90s, 80s, 90s. And he beat cancer twice, stage 4, and
Wow. Yeah, stage 4 is tough.
yeah, very similar character as you. Like, I'm going to make sure you guys meet. But the point is, resilient fighter, out there doing the same things you're doing, like really, really powerful person, and he has a show as well, like yourself, very, very similar people, and I was on his show as well. And he's trying to tell me to tell people about resilience and how I made that shift and and I said, no, 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 let's talk about you, because that's where the shift happened. I want people to kind of look at you. That's where compassion comes in for me. Compassiviste says, don't look at Ali, look at Bridget or Bridget, whatever you want to call it. But look at Bridget, whether you're in France or because you talked about France and dairy, but look at you and put yourself in those shoes and figure a way out without giving up, by winning continuously, by fighting
Right.
continuously,
I
by
think so.
growing continuously. And that's what Compassiviste is about allowing people to connect at that
That's
level
good.
so that, you and I can collectively move forward for the better of the world.
I like that. We all have some dealing with something. That's kind of what, and
Exactly.
that's what you're doing. You need the compassion and you need resilience. I used to joke that I'm still here because I'm stubborn, but actually, I'm very curious. I think curiosity
Hmm.
is something that we need to be aware of too, and to look at different perspectives, right? And that helps with
And,
passion.
and it starts with compassion and the curiosity cannot be cured without education. You're
Yes,
curious, you want to find out what's going on in your body. How are you going to find out? You have to educate yourself, right?
that's
You
what I
don't
did.
find out unless you educate yourself, and that's what you see what I mean. That's what you do. So you're the living example of how Compassiviste works in one person. So you're all these you know molecules of everything that makes you, and that you're that octopus, right? So now imagine that in real huge society, humans, you and me and everybody else that we know coming together and in within that society making those compassionate moves to make everything better.
That's so. That
We
is
can
so
do
great.
that, we won't have problems in the world. I don't think the problems are, let's go bomb this place because we need cheaper oil. Let's go kill those
Right.
people. It's not that. If we can become compassionate and if we can all together decide to live happily, merrily in that one family outlook, the oneness, then we won't need to do those things. We will be able to negotiate outcomes in which everybody receives an adequate amount. It's just that when we lose compassion, we say, never mind the adequacy, I want it all. That's when the problem happens, right?
Uh, so we talked a lot of different, jumped around a different lot of
Yeah.
things, but that's
Because
fine.
you throw curveballs all the
I like
time.
it. I like that. That's just
You're
me.
talking and you very casually turn around and say, so cancer twice.
What's
Like, casual.
the biggest takeaway for the listeners, do you think? What is just one main takeaway for this conversation? I'm just curious what you think. See, I'm curious.
That's fine. My one takeaway is you cannot even have the word lost, lose, or give up in your vocabulary. The moment that word has resonance in your vocabulary, it's okay that you understand what it means as a word, but as long the moment it has some resonance and you can relate to it in your vocabulary and your essence, you have a problem. You need to sort that out. The moment you think you've lost at something or you're giving up on something, that's when it cannot happen. And I mean this from the smallest thing to the biggest thing. I've spoken with people who were on the verge of committing suicide and they didn't, and people who were helped back, people who were addicted and they thought all life is over, and then they went to rehab, they were able to win their lives back, with a lot of effort, with a lot of dedication. The difference between owning your life and driving your momentum the way you want and doing something purposeful with your life, whatever it may be, that you find that is the reason you exist, all happens in the scope of never giving up. Because when you don't give up, even if you don't get to that Templar place that you really want to, you will die one day on that path. So you'll never know that it didn't happen. But if you give up and you sit there and you still have 40 years to go in your life, because you don't know when you're going to die, but you have 40 years to go, and you're sitting there and saying, I give up. And for all those 40 years, you're grumpy about that one issue that didn't work. Well, you could have fixed a lot of other things in those 40 years and probably been much more ahead. But because you gave up, right?
Right.
Now you have no more life. You have no more momentum. You have no value added. You have no legacy in compassion. So I think the biggest takeaway, resilience, requires you to have an attitude where I'm onto something, I'm going to put all my effort into this something, and I'm going to make the world a better place, driving it with my compassionate mindset.
I love that. We all want to make the world a better place. And that's why I started this podcast. I'm learning and sharing, I'm learning myself and then sharing these stories, in videos format, which I started doing during COVID because people wanted to see faces,
Right,
not
exactly.
just the audio. But this has been,
And I love being on these places because I
yes,
meet people like yourself and I learn so much and
right, right. We learn from
it
each
gives
other.
me perspective. Exactly. So that's why I say communicate, right? Communicate. And there's no better time in the world than today to communicate. You can communicate in so many ways. So that's,
Yes.
that's what I say to do.
I
So,
love this. Where can people learn more about you, Allie?
well, you can follow us on our social media at Compassiviste, which is just at Compassiviste as it's spelled. We're lucky it's a unique word, so you can essentially get all the platforms for it.
Google it, right?
So at Compassiviste across the board, and our website, we have a lot of different arms, as with the tentacles. They have their own spaces, but if you go to the hub, compassiviste.com, you can find your way through, going to the foundation, going to the publishing house, going everywhere around. So yeah, compassiviste.com or at Compassiviste.
This is awesome. And for those that are listening, I'll include the link in the description section. This is very enlightening, and I love this. I'm so silly. I'll jump, all excited from this. I like your energy, and you're sharing so much knowledge, and it's just so helpful. I hope it's helpful to the listeners too. At least it was for me.
It is. It is. It is. And we learned a lot about you on your own show. So
Yeah, I
that must help.
don't really. Well, thanks for asking that. 'Cause I don't really tell people that. So anyway,
Well, now they know.
I know.
So please reach out to Brigitte and,
Yeah.
and talk about those issues as well.
Right. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.